this month of uncertainty due to this pandemic, online learning is inevitable. Coupled with the independent campus program as our new policy here. Let's together we improve the quality of online learning by making good and quality learning materials. As I mentioned above, due to the circumstances, we have been pushed to quickly adapt with all limitation to have online learning. However, albeit with limitation, we cannot ignore the importance of the method of delivery materials, contents, and engagement in the learning process to support the effectiveness of learning. Since this online learning massively has been run for almost a year, we believe that our students and our lecturers already getting accustomed with it. Hence, in this moment, our priorities are strengthening the capacity of lecturer in conducting online learning, including how to make good learning materials, increasing engagement with students, ensuring the quality of learning and the effectiveness of the learning process. Therefore, today's event is a very good opportunity for all of us to gain insight in order to improve the quality of online learning. In closing, I hope we can turn this dialogue actively into an opportunity to learn with and from each other, share experiences, and gain insights in managing and conducting good online learning, as well as networking to building a strong collaboration, especially in education sector. So by saying Basmalah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, we officially open the designing online learning material virtual online higher education policy dialogue between Australia and Indonesia. Thank you, all of you, for joining this event and enjoying the webinar. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Professor Urais Junaidi, who already opened the webinar program. And now we are moving to the next speaker. We are very pleased to invite the Education and Science Counselor, Elizabeth Campbell-Dorning, to deliver the welcoming and context setting of the agenda. Please, Ms. Elizabeth, time is yours.
Thank you, Terima kasih Mas Helmi, and thank you for the very kind words of welcome, Pak Urais. Thank you, Pak Urais, as Director of Learning and Student Affairs, the Ministry of Education and Culture, for your partnership and support of this initiative. I also wanted to start by thanking the audience. I understand that more than 1,000 of you have registered to join this webinar, and you're joining here on Zoom or via the SPADA YouTube. And I wanted to thank you for your time, because we know there are many competing priorities at the moment. Everyone is very busy trying to adjust and adapt to this changed world that we live in, and the impact that it's having on our institutions and our work life as well. So thank you for making yourselves available today. And also a preemptive thanks, particularly to both the Indonesian and Australian speakers from Universitas Gadjah Mada, Universitas Tanjung Pura, Universitas Negeri Makassar, Macquarie University, Griffith University, University of Southern Queensland, and the University of Western Australia. We really appreciate your expertise and your willingness to share your viewpoints and experiences with all of us. Obviously, in normal times, things would be pretty different. We would have many thousands of students traveling between our countries, many hundreds of lecturers and academics and university executives traveling between Australia and Indonesia, and progressing cooperation in that way as they shape the future of their institutions and of higher education in our two countries. Of course, it's all a little bit difficult at the moment with the pandemic. So we thought that organising this virtual policy dialogue between our universities would not just keep conversations going, but we hope to start new conversations as well, because there's so much new to talk about at the moment as our work has changed so much over the past years. So through this series, we're very much hoping to provide a useful forum to share experiences, as Pak Aris has said, but to share challenges and hopefully solutions as well. And these webinars will bring together both Australian and Indonesian higher education institutions to share their, we hope, really practical knowledge and experiences in online learning, even though we all have different contexts that we're working in. And I think whilst we talk about the change that we're all going through, I think we need to also reflect that maybe things will not go back to the way they were, and that might be a good thing in some ways, because change creates opportunities. And whilst this is a very challenging time, it's also helping us to think differently and helping us to build resilience. And I think in a way, our cooperation in online higher education is a good example that even before the pandemic, the Indonesian and Australian governments, my team and Pak Aris's team, along with PEXA and Ibu Karen, had been working together on online higher education policy, particularly in the quality assurance of online higher education. And there's a lot of good reasons for doing that. We actually, Australia and Indonesia are very similar countries in some ways. We're very large countries with very spread out populations, and online delivery makes a lot of sense for our countries. So the pandemic is just accelerating an agenda that was already there. So I think at the core of this is that regardless of the mode of learning, the type of higher education, regardless of how students are learning, the focus needs to be quality. And that is seen through a lot of different elements and involves a lot of different parts of the university, not just talking about quality, but integrity, the student experience and student engagement, pedagogical skills of lecturers and academics, the teaching, the learning, the assessment and technologies. And I suspect this one webinar is not going to provide all of the answers, but I genuinely hope it will continue a dialogue between Australian and Indonesian universities that will help us all move forward by sharing experiences to find the right answers for your university and your circumstances, both during the pandemic while we continue, but also after the pandemic, and what can we do to improve things for our institutions, but for our students and our lecturers also. So with that, I will conclude and I say again, welcome and open the dialogue. So thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Elizabeth Campbell-Dorning, for delivering the context settings of the agenda. And distinguished participants, for the next agenda, we will have an exciting panel discussion, which will be led by a facilitator and also distinguished speakers. But before that, let me introduce you to our facilitator this morning. He is Dr. Rianto Purboyo. He was a doctor from philosophy in instructional technology from University of Twente in Netherlands. So please welcome Mr. Rianto.
Thank you, Pak Hilmi. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Pak Rianto. So you may begin the discussion session with the speaker.
All right, thank you. I would like to say thank you and greeting from my university, Universitas Pelita Harapan, greeting from our rector to Pak Urais also. Thank you for this opportunity. Let we now start with our first session, that is the first agenda item number 4 in our agenda. We have here Dr. Karen Treller. I think Dr. Karen Treller is quite familiar with us. I myself met her in 2017. We had our live seminar at the times organized by Dikti and also from Australian government. It was the event from APEC sessions talking about the quality and the standard also. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Karen Treller, who is the Director Engagement Australian Education Quality and Standard Agency, or so-called TEXA. Welcome, Dr. Treller. Nice to meet you again. And please, we may start our discussion.
Thank you for that very, very kind invite. It was really lovely sitting here waiting for the seminar to begin and to see so many familiar faces after such a very long time. We've been talking about this and various aspects of online learning since 2017. So I think together we've come a very long way and we should be very proud. I've got a very short presentation I'm now going to try and share with you. So you'll all have to bear with me. Now, okay. Perhaps I'm not. Perhaps I'll get my colleague Emily to do it. No. Thanks, Emily. So today our theme of our conversation is about designing online materials. If you could move to the next slide, Emily. As many of you know, and as Australia is very proud to say, many of our Australian providers have a long and strong history in the provision of online education. And I think the quality of the speakers from an Australian perspective that are going to be sharing their insights with you today from Macquarie, Griffith, the University of Southern Queensland and the University of Western Australia are a fabulous lineup of speakers, and we're very proud to be presenting with them today. Australia, as you may know if you have listened to me in the past, has a standard-based regulatory approach to quality assurance. So we have an Australian Higher Ed Standards, and they assure that we get a quality output and education regardless of mode of delivery. So we're also very focused in Australia on how students are supported to achieve learning outcomes across any mode of delivery. Emily, if we could move along. So during the COVID pandemic, TEXA realised that whilst we had some universities who are excellent in working in the world of online learning, we also had a number of smaller colleges that needed help. So we thought, what could we do? So we took a quality enhancement approach to working with providers in the world of online learning. So we went about, if we could have the next slide, Emily, we developed a website with an array of materials. On that website, we have contributions from our providers, from experts, from global experts. I was just thinking before I came on that we don't, I think, have anything from Indonesia yet, so we would love any contributions and good practices from our colleagues in universities in Indonesia. We are going to, over this year, keep this repository of information as a document, a live document, and keep developing it for providers. So it'll be very much a watch this space. Emily, if we can move on. So we will continue looking at good practice and guidance for providers transitioning to online learning. And we will continue to collect resources from across the globe, really. We've had great engagement with this and we want that to continue. Today's forum is focused on teaching and assessment in an online learning environment. So I'm just going to make a few comments from the perspective of a regulator. You are very privileged today to have both Indonesian and Australian experts from universities who are going to share good practice. So I'm not going to I'm just going to give a very quick framework that, as I've said, we expect all providers to meet the higher ed standards framework. And all providers need to do this to, in fact, be higher education providers. We would expect that in an online or a digital environment where students are receiving a good digital education, that the course materials that are developed are fit for purpose. So the old chalk and talk is not going to work. You need to have something which engages students and that the course design and learning outcomes are met. We would expect to see constructive alignment in courses and formative assessment and feedback. And that we're very concerned about the student experience. So we really want to see that academic support and interactions that students are being supported both formally in the class and outside of formal teaching. And we're very concerned in an online environment regarding student safety and wellbeing. So at the end of last year, TEXA conducted a survey across all providers in Australia, and some of the feedback we got from that is that students feel very isolated in an online environment and they really value that connectivity with their teachers. So TEXA as a regulator is looking at ways that we can support providers in further strengthening their work with students and being mindful of the student experience. Next slide, Emily. So at TEXA, we're just beginning to think about what we're going to do with online learning over the next year and how we work with the sector, and we're beginning discussions about
I'm sorry, Karen. Administrator, please mute. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Karen, you are mute your audio.
I don't know what's going on. So I'll talk with I'll see what happens. The student experience of online learning is going to be a big focus. So we want to know that those students are getting the education they need and that they're being supported. We're going to encourage the sharing of further good practice resources. And we're beginning at TEXA to develop our digital platform. So we will also be undertaking further learning activities across the sector, which is using the sector to speak to the sector. It won't be TEXA dictating. But we do also need to begin to think about how we look at online learning and the quality of online learning from a quality assurance or regulatory perspective. How do we go in and check that what a provider's doing, that a provider's doing what they say they're doing, and the student experience is as good as it can be and equivalent to a face-to-face experience. Great questions already. This is what happens when you give me 5 minutes. So that's we've done a lot of work in this area. It's been enhancement, working with the sector. We're going to continue to do that and share good practice over 21 and try and be resilient to whatever's going to be thrown at us next as a nation and as a community. and hopefully work with you guys more over the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Treller. Well, this is very enlightenment for us, and I believe this is also a kind of invitation for Indonesian government and universities to join with this kind of framework. As we know, in Indonesia, we don't have that kind of a specific framework for online learning. We have the accreditation board at the national level. I think this time is really a very interesting time that we should join this kind of activity, and this initiative is really helpful for us. I have here some questions, but I think I have to rephrase the questions because some of the questions are related directly to the provider, I think, because for example, they want to know what will be the cost effectiveness of the online learning, things like that. But I pick up some important questions like, as I see from your presentation and brief explanations that you are focusing, TEXA is more focusing to the student experience, basically, including safety and studying online. There are some questions about the motivations and engagement. What is the perspective of TEXA and in terms of probably indicators of what will be the best engagement and how to motivate students to study?
I'm going to deflect that question to my colleagues that work in universities and are working on the front line. But we would expect that students are engaged, that they're being contacted, that if there's any problems, you're aware of them pretty quickly. If they need further support, they know where to go. If they need other resources, they're available. If they have problems with technology and connectivity, because we found early on in COVID, many students didn't have laptops. Couldn't connect. So how do you support those students? How do you support students that are in share houses and sharing houses with families of 4 or 5 people and they've got no quiet space to study? And these are the issues that came out very much in that student survey.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Taylor, for your response. I believe in that. So I think from the quality perspective, we have end-to-end process of online learning, and we have to make sure that the standard and the delivery is also up to the certain level of quality. Right. Okay. So if I talk to many of our colleagues in Indonesia, and this is my questions actually, we are quite find it very challenging to meet a certain standard in online learning, especially for a strategy of learning and also the quality of the materials, because most of the issue here is that we are still dealing with the connectivity and accessibility. What is the perspective of TEXA? Probably this is rather open question. Probably.
I think that is why when COVID started, we took an enhancement. So we weren't going to come down straight away and go, you haven't done this and you haven't done this, therefore we're deregistering you. We wanted to help providers because what we knew that the universities predominantly are very, very good at this. But we also have some very small providers that didn't ever think they would have to go online and operated face-to-face in niche areas. So this was all very new to them. So we wanted to share the good practice across the sector. Now, you know, we're a year in at least. Online learning's not going anywhere. So now we need to begin to think about how we measure probably more formally the quality assurance of online learning. I should also say as an aside that I think I've spoke to many of you before, but if you need any resources from us, please contact us directly. And any of the resources on the website are readily available to all of you. Because I don't want you reinventing the wheel. Because we've also found that we've spoken to many quality assurance agents globally, and many countries are in the same position and having the same discussions.
Okay. let me scan some questions again, Karen. Or I think most of the questions are related to the practicality of online learning.
That's great. I'll flick those to my colleagues.
I have another question, actually a kind of confirmation from your side, probably.
Yeah.
We are used to the accreditation board looking at the quality of the provider. If I correctly understand the TEXA perspective, there is a quality standard for courses, basically, so particular courses delivered in online learning. Is that correct?
So we will look at the mode of delivery, but we don't. So every provider must meet these course standards. And there's a set of course standards there, and it's regardless of mode of delivery. But it will be customized. The assessment will be customized to the mode of delivery. So if you're operating online, we will go and have a look at the system, etc., etc.
So the benefit from the TEXA framework is that this is quite flexible. So depending on the limitations of the provider.
Yeah. So we had a forum about 2 or 3 years ago where we tested with the sector whether we needed to develop separate standards. And it wasn't evident after that forum to us that we needed to. We are beginning to think about, given the prevalence of online learning, what we need to do next, and if we may need to offer or think about, you know, some change standards. But these are pretty robust. So we're kind of, that's a part of a conversation that we've just begun.
Right. So this is quite flexible framework, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
because
it will be
we deal with a range of providers, and we don't want to be prescriptive, but we have a base level of standards that we want everyone to meet.
Right. Thank you for these confirmations. I think this is also another flexibility for our institutions. Manage this kind of framework and don't be afraid with that kind of framework that TEXA will not assess it specifically for online learning.
Yeah, and we do also have an institutional assessment once every 7 years. So
once every 7 years.
That gives us another chance to look at how the university is operating, how teaching and learning is being governed, how the university's academic board's looking at the quality assurance of online learning. So we're interested in how those systems and processes are working. We're not going to tell the university how to do it. They have to explain to us what their approach is and how they're doing it.
Yeah. When you're referring to provider, are you referring to the university, or in Indonesia we operate more in the study program level?
So in Australia, we have approximately 184 providers, and anyone delivering any higher education has to be registered with TEXA. So you can be a big university or a college of drama or business, but you've all got to meet the TEXA standards. But your response, the response of a big university to the standards is customized to that university. The response of a small college is customized to what goes on in that college.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
All right. I think we have come to the time that we have to move on with the next presents. I see a lot of questions to the provider.
Good. Keep them busy.
Well, anyway,
some very good speakers, so you should have a very good afternoon or morning. Sorry.
Thank you very much for your time and effort, and also the offer. So we look forward for the further coordinations. I think it will be facilitated by Australian Embassy and also the Directorate General of Higher Education, Republic of Indonesia. Thank you very much.
So we look forward to working with you again. Thank you.
It's an invitation for every one of us. Thank you very much. See you.
Bye.
Okay, so Pak Hilmi, I think I can go on to the next items.
Yes, please. Please, Mr. Rianto, you may move to the next panel discussion.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now entering to our agenda number 6 with the title of Designing Online Learning Materials and Australian Perspective in the next 30 minutes. We have here 3 presenters from world-famous Australian universities, from Macquarie University, from Griffith Online and Griffith University, University of Southern Queensland also. They will be addressing at least four points in these presentations: roles and accountabilities in the course development process, designing courses for online delivery, key difference between learning materials for face-to-face versus online, and then some case studies and sample resources in practical fields, such as in engineering and medical science. Wow, this is very important points that they will addressing. So, ladies and gentlemen, please note that during this three presentation, there will be no Q&A answer sessions in between. However, we will provide a panel discussion in our agenda in item number 7 after Indonesian perspective of design and online learning. For the first presenter, please welcome Professor Dominic Paris. Good afternoon, Professor Paris. You are with us now. Professor Paris is the Vice Counselor, Learning and Teaching from Macquarie University. Professor Paris has over 35 years experience in educational field across a range of organizations and in various leaderships. She has very important role in this university, and her main responsibilities includes working with key institution staff to promote flexible and innovative delivery. And then she also involved in the leading initiative in employability and work integrated learning and advising, supporting senior leaders and managers in relation in learning and teaching. Please, Professor Paris, we can start the discussion by having the 10 minutes presentation.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I might just share my screen if I can.
Sure, you can.
Share this. Okay, hopefully you can see the first screen.
Sure. Yes.
Great. Okay, so this afternoon I'm actually going to talk to you about online learning from the student's perspective and giving you a bit of an insight into what we have identified students want from their online learning experience. At Macquarie University, we offer most of our learning in an on-campus mode. So we are a primarily on-campus mode, and 2020 presented a very unforeseen opportunity where we had to very quickly pivot and start delivering, as did many universities, our learning online. So that actually presented an opportunity for us in that we very quickly had to identify what our capability and capacity were to deliver online learning. It turned out that we had about 95% of our staff who had never taught in an online environment, and a similar number of students who'd never engaged in learning in an online environment. So I led the facilitation of 2 surveys to ask students what they wanted, and our survey 1, which was conducted in first session, so around about May to June last year, had 7,500 respondents, which is it's close to a quarter of our student cohort responding. And then in session 2, we had 5,000 students respond. So this information gave us a sense of how we should be designing our courses for online delivery from the point of view of students. Students told us that they wanted consistent and intuitive navigation and layout of the online learning environment. They wanted to know that every time they went into their online learning environment, they didn't have to relearn how to navigate and move through that environment. They wanted it to be standardized so that there were no unexpected barriers to them and their learning.
Yes.
Students also wanted all of their content to be logically sequenced. So they wanted knowledge and skill development to be designed in such a way that one built on the next and that subsequently built on the next and the next and the next. They also wanted us to organise their learning into weekly chunks. And the benefit of this was that it helped them to pace their learning and the study requirements associated with that learning. Students also wanted clear information, and there was so much feedback on this, especially where they found that there was a lack of clear information. They wanted to know what they needed to do in their learning, and in particular in assessment tasks. They wanted to be clear about the expectations. They wanted to understand how their assignments, their assessments would be graded, the criteria that would be used in the marking of those assessments. They wanted to know very clearly when they would be given feedback. And this management of expectations we identified as a very significant factor in a positive student experience. So where students' expectations, they expected one thing and we delivered a different, that was a real inconsistent situation that really evoked dissatisfaction in students. They also wanted to know about the expectations for their engagement. So did they have to attend lectures? Did they need to be meeting with their groups? They really wanted clarity around the sort of expectations that were imposed on them with respect to their engagement. They also very clearly indicated to us that they wanted their lectures to be engaging. They wanted these lectures to incorporate activities that required them to do things like quizzes or watch videos or participate in breakout rooms. They really wanted us to, instead of just making it one way, they wanted us to evoke their responses and their questions and their active participation in their learning. The students also wanted opportunities to engage with their peers and to interact with their peers. And this was an area that we were perceived to probably not provide enough interaction and engagement opportunity for them. In terms of the key differences with the face-to-face and online, students in a face-to-face environment can come to the teacher after the class and they can ask questions, and that information can be provided in a timely way. However, in an online environment, it's very clear that we need to provide this information. It needs to be readily available and it needs to be very comprehensive and detailed. Students want to have, students can have their questions answered in person. In an online environment, we need to provide them that opportunity to log their questions when they have them, and we need to provide that feedback in a timely, or the responses to their questions in a timely manner. In a face-to-face environment, students are very happy for us to provide their resources on an ongoing basis. We can provide resources week to week, and we don't need to make sure that everything is available from the beginning. But in an online environment, students want their resources to be provided well in advance. They don't want it just in time. They want it quite a great deal before they're going to be needing to use those resources. With respect to student consultation, we can do that in a face-to-face environment. We can indicate to students that they can come and meet us at a certain time, at a certain date, in a certain place. In an online environment, students still want this. They want to know, when can I talk to my lecturer, or when can I talk to my tutor? When will I be able to meet with them? They wanted us to indicate well in advance again when they could log on and talk to their lecturers or their tutors. In terms of some of the things that students tell us they must have only in a face-to-face environment, They want all of their practical classes in a face-to-face environment. They're not tolerant of practical classes, for example, labs, workshops, tutorials. They don't want them to be online. They're engaging classes. They're classes that require two-way interaction, and they really want those to be facilitated in a face-to-face medium. They don't want to do group-based learning or group-based assessment tasks in an online environment. They want those to be in a face-to-face environment. Final exams, there was a lot of elevated angst and a great deal of dissatisfaction where we were providing students with online exams in their final exams. In terms of online, what we can provide in an online environment, very tolerant of lectures, pre-recorded and live streamed lectures being done in an online environment. Students indicated that they really appreciated the Zoom resource. They quite liked the breakout rooms, the polls that were available. Zoom was a continually affirmed medium that we used and that students enjoyed using. They were happy to do some discussion forums in an online environment where questions were posed by the teacher and students were providing responses in that sort of online environment. They were quite happy to do that online, and they were quite happy to watch videos online. There were also some interactive tools that they were very comfortable with engaging in an online environment, such as polls. In terms of adjusting to the online, students do want opportunities to interact with teachers and their fellow students in an online environment. So we need to be able to provide those too. Students indicated to us that across time and given more opportunity to engage in an online environment, their confidence about being successful increased. They also indicated that they adjusted to the circumstances imposed on them because of COVID-19 as time progressed. And finally, student satisfaction about online learning definitely increased the more time they had to engage with it.
Thank you, Dr. Professor Urais. You are addressing very crucial points, I think, and we can move on to the next presenter. At the end of this session, I will point out some important things that we have to look after. Our next presenter will be Professor Barter, Professor Nick Barter. Good afternoon, Professor Barter. Professor Barter is the Dean and the Director of Learning, Futures and Griffith Online at Griffith University of Brisbane. His role is to lead a team that supports Griffith academic groups and university in its transformations to become a digital-first university. He has been with Griffith nearly 10 years and has held a range of roles, all of which have involved some elements of enabling the university to lean even more into digital enablement. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Barter. Please, Professor Barter, you may start the presentation.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I'm just trying to catch up with the technology here, so I appreciate your patience. While I think I'm hopefully trying to make sure I share the right thing, you see. Let me try that. Hang on. Okay. Sorry about this, colleagues. It's a little bit trickier than I thought. Right, we're there. Hopefully you can see in front of you just a few slides.
Yes.
And like my colleague, I've only got a few things to say in terms of designing online learning materials and what's involved in that. At Griffith, we are a university based in Brisbane, and we have about 50,000 students, and online students typically is about our second largest cohort. Actually, it's about 20–25% of all our students. We've been teaching online for maybe 18, 19, 20, 25 years now. So we've got an awful lot of experience at doing it. And what I'm going to talk to you about is a very high level overview around roles, designing, differences in learning materials, face-to-face versus online. In terms of, so there should be some animation on the slides to help just work it through, but very simple. Hopefully it'll, the roles. One of the things we really do focus on is the fact that it's the convener or the academic's name who's teaching. And so one of the things we're very focused on is making sure we're academic led in terms of their capabilities and understandings of online teaching and what might be involved. And it's really important to say that in terms of they have to be comfortable, partly because the course rises and falls on them in terms of the students' evaluation of the course will rise and fall in most part on their evaluation of the convener. We also know that making conveners comfortable and confident is key. We actually, even though I'm going to show you a few other bits and pieces, we actually know that making them comfortable is far more important than the latest online materials or the latest this or the latest bit of technology that. No student who's ever evaluated a course and said, you know what, the technology was fantastic. It's always the convener was fantastic or the convener was helpful. And so that means we're really, really focused, as I say, on making sure the convener is comfortable. Moving on from there, that means we have teams of educational designers in our university, along with curriculum designers and lots of other bits of people. And I think really what I'm reinforcing there is they're there to support, not to do. It can be quite tricky, I think. A lot of our educational designers have a view that they know best, but because they don't teach and get evaluated, we continually reinforce this requirement to make sure the convener is comfortable. Our challenge in our university, and I think it's the same for every university, is conveners continually, or academics, recognizing they have to continually develop their digital skills, especially as we become a digital first university, and like all universities are much more financially constrained in these COVID times. So just to put a bit of support around that statement, before I looked after Learning Futures and Griffith Online, I used to just look after Griffith Online for about 5 years. And we spent 5 years encouraging our circa 1,500 academics to move online. And then COVID essentially changed the paradigm, as we're all aware. And there was a mad scramble to understand what it meant to teach online, to use Microsoft Teams in particular, which is our go-to product as opposed to Zoom. And I think the challenge will be as we go forward is avoiding any snapback, but continuing to drive forward in terms of online and digital first. And that, in that regard, we see this challenge of making sure our conveners and our academics continue to move forward in their development of their digital skills. You know, there was a panic situation last year where everybody got it. But we've got to keep reinforcing and moving along this journey, because higher education, particularly in Australia, is just going to undergo a fair few more changes over the next few years as we evolve to this new understanding of what it means for delivering higher education, be it for domestic students or international students or domestic workers or whatever it may be. So just 4 key rules. I'll bring them all up. We have 4 key rules that we apply. We have 4, partly because I think just because it's worked out that way, but it's easy to remember, it's easy to say, and they're kind of the principles that we apply. The first one is course learning outcomes, or subject learning outcomes, making sure they line up through the different modules in the course. So if you have one particular objective, make sure that objective is delivered on, and the student can clearly see how that objective is delivered on. So a lot of work is done to make sure that the content relates to the objective or learning outcome and in the module, and then that lines up in the course or the unit or the subject. That's a really obvious point, but like many things, the obvious requires continual reinforcement. Assessment is critical. Students are more and more assessment first. They look to see what the assessment is and then look at their course content through the lens of assessment. So we really focus on the assessment instructions. Feedback is absolutely critical, because this is where the convener or the academic is actually saying what they think about the students' work. And we work with our conveners to make sure there's rubrics in place, and also to make sure that, you know, there's a good, healthy, constructive comments for students. And then the last one, number 4, good to chat. Really what we're reminding our conveners of there is the most important factor in terms of ensuring a good learning outcome for students is showing you're available, is showing you're open to conversation, is showing that you're available, you care about their progress. Chatting in this context is actually not even chatting in a synchronous setting such as we're at. It's chatting in Microsoft Teams or like. And we actually find, if nothing else, numbers 2, 3, and 4 are absolutely critical. We can get away with all sorts of things, actually, in terms of the quality of the learning materials. Not to say it's all terrible, but you know, the best, there's distance between our best and our worst. But the course convener being open to have a conversation and giving good feedback, absolutely critical. And the interesting thing about those course learning outcomes is, although the session is called Developing Online Materials, I'd have put the same ones up that we were talking about face-to-face or online, actually. I'm conscious of time, so I want to shift on a little bit. So what I wanted to let you know was, perhaps just look at any one of the views. They're kind of the same. And what I want, top left is the best one. What I want you to note there, that's how we work with conveners to start to think about what are they doing in their course, how will it work in different settings. Just use a really simple 2x2 based on synchronous time, synchronous location, or asynchronous time, asynchronous location. Probably leave that there, being conscious of time. And then the last question that was asked was, what's the difference in materials between face-to-face and online? It's not how we think about it at Griffith. So much of what we do, electronic readings, videos, assessment tasks, all of it actually is available digitally or linked through our learning management system. Hence, we don't print. We print in very, very minor and exceptional cases. So there is no real difference, actually. The difference is whether you decide to run a session in a synchronous place and time, or whether you decide to run it in a synchronous time but different locations, such as we're doing now, or some other version. There really is no difference in the materials. And the other thing, the last message I wanted to give really was, one of the things we know is that with more online, it actually helps us reduce our carbon emissions. And so one of the things Griffith has is it has a carbon reduction target. And one of the things we're continually balancing up is meeting the carbon reduction target and how we can use online judiciously to help us do that, while also ensuring students have the right types of experience and right types of mix, what we call blended, which is face-to-face. So that was all I wanted to say. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Professor Butter. We are looking forward for more discussion after Indonesian presentation. We now move to the third presenter. We have here our final presenter from Australia, Professor Shelley Kinash. Good afternoon, Professor Kinash. Professor Kinash is the Director of Advance of Learning and Teaching at the University of Southern Queensland, where 75% of the students are learning entirely online. She has been in academic for over 25 years and completed her PhD in Education and Technology through University of Calgary in Canada. She has led and co-led 3 high-impact national research projects competitively awarded through Australian governments on graduate employability and postgraduate student experience, and also closing the loop on student evaluation of course and teaching. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Kinash in our last presentation from Australia. You have around 10 minutes, Professor Kinash. Please go on.
Wonderful, thank you. Murphy's Law construction just started below me just as it was my turn to speak. So I apologize if there's feedback, distraction. I'll try to speak as clearly as I can. So the University of Southern Queensland has a unique student population. We have a lot of students, in addition to a large number of international students, we have regional, rural, remote, part-time, and a lot of our students are their first in their family to attend university and require those extra supports to transition in and to feel a sense of belonging in university. We have a number of mature age learners who are already in the workforce and coming back to university to enhance their knowledge, skills, and attributes to become more. The next screen is, would we serve our students nasi goreng? We can be the master chefs of a grand buffet. And this is nothing against nasi goreng, which is the equivalent to bread and butter. And I quite love nasi goreng. But what the point is that we want to extend to really open up the options to our students and make sure that what we are delivering to our students and what's on the menu really suits what works best for them. Looking at USW's 3 online learning guiding principles, the first is that we blend online and face-to-face student experiences. So we have a digital first approach for all of our students. Whether our students are primarily face-to-face or primarily online, we ensure, I'm sorry, are you getting a great deal of feedback? Or are you hearing me clearly?
We can hear you clearly.
Okay, well, thank you. So our 100% of our students have a digital first experience because we know that the affordances or the opportunities of digital space are going to best suit our students. So whether it's primarily online and they come to us for intensives or we set up work-based learning experiences for them, or whether they're entirely online, depending on their discipline, we make sure that they have a digital learning experience. And so we blend the opportunities to make sure that what they have is a highly engaging and connected experience online, as well as what they need for those extra experiences to ensure that they're employable and fit for graduate success, including career futures. The second principle, again, overlaps with that digital first learning experience. So we use innovative approaches for interaction, communication, and connection. So it's absolutely essential that we communicate readily with our students, whether they're online, like we're doing today, or whether they're together with us face-to-face, and that students truly feel connected to one another and to the educator. And the third key point is that we complement with extensive support. particularly because we have a lot of students who have particular needs. Their parents maybe didn't attend university, and it takes them a little longer to figure out what this university experience is all about and how to fit into it. Or because they're mature age learners, they have a lot of other considerations in their lives: mortgages, families, work, and attending part-time. So we make sure that we provide a lot of supports so that the student learning experience is wrapped in a really strong network of overall student experience supports. Looking at the second question, the roles and accountabilities in the course development process, we find that there's 4 really key roles. The first is a leader. And this person is there to, as a project developer, to make sure there's goals, KPIs, milestones, deadlines, delivery, evaluation, and continuous improvement, so that we really keep an eye on the quality. So we're continually developing our course suites and disciplines to make sure that they're fit for purpose and aligned with industry needs and really lead industries forward. The second are discipline experts. As our previous speaker mentioned, it's really key that the conveners are the drivers of the curriculum. And so we have discipline experts, most of whom come from industry. And so they themselves have worked in the industry that they're now teaching in. And we ensure that they continually have that industry consultation and the knowledge of their student cohort and what's going to work in their particular discipline and industry. And the third are minimum requirements for a consistent online learning experience. So while we encourage and support a great deal of flexibility and bespoke nature for particular disciplines, it's also really essential that we have minimum requirements. That means that all of our students, regardless of what program they're in, have a connected experience where they're really interacting with one another and their educator. And the fourth are educational designers. And so while the discipline experts, number 2, are experts in the particular discipline and industry, number 4 are experts in curriculum and pedagogy. So how do students learn best in this particular discipline? So the educational designers work alongside the disciplinary experts to write curriculum, design pedagogy, so the what we're learning and then the how we're learning it, and digitally innovating so that we're making sure we're using the tools along the way. I like to use an acronym when we're designing courses for online learning. There are 6 key components which intersect or can be remembered through the acronym of online. So the first one is that they're open. The O of online stands for open. So making sure that we take the positioning that they're not just our students, but that we're really building and contributing to the capacity of our overall workforce and our overall society. So as much as possible, we keep learning open. The second is that it's navigable. It's really important when students are online that they're really able to navigate the space. They know where to start. They know where to go next. They know how to find what they're looking for. The next is L for learning. So I'd like to share a little joke here where a boy is standing there with a dog and he says to a girl, "I taught my dog to whistle." And the girl tilts her head and she says, "But I don't hear anything." And the boy says, "I said I taught him to whistle, not that he can whistle." And this is when it's focused on teaching rather than learning. So it's important that educators aren't just standing at the front of the room lecturing at people and hoping that they're learning along the way, but that we're really putting tools and approaches and learning activities in place so that our students truly are learning. The next is that it's I, interactive. So it's really important in the online space that it's not a filing cabinet, it's not an information dump, but that the students are really engaged and constructing their understandings of the materials that they're dealing with. And they're doing many of the same activities that they will be doing out in the workforce, in their careers, so that they're learning and getting feedback along the way. Next is that it's networked. So the students are networked with one another, and also they're taking advantage of the internet. the network, the ground internet, so that they're not just learning from and accessing the knowledge base of the one sage on the stage, their own convener, but that really network to all of the experts across the world and this global knowledge base that we can build. And 6 is that it's engaging. One of our educators said to me, you know, I have just as much power to make learning boring as I do to make it exciting. So why would I make it boring? Because then it's going to be boring for me too. So we make sure that our educators are engaging and that they're passionate about their subject area. There's a link here to an article in Education Technology Solutions that I invite you to go and see. And if you miss the links afterwards, you can tweet me at Kanash in Oz, and I'll send you the links. So this is, it goes into further detail about the online acronym. The next question is the key difference between learning materials for online versus face-to-face. And as my colleagues have shared with you, it's really important that it's about learning, whatever the mode of learning is, because truly today's students are all online learners, even if they spend a lot of their time on campus. But particularly when students are spending more of their time online and less in face-to-face, it's really important that the course design is very intentional, that we are really sure about what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it, that it's explicit, that we provide explicit instructions to students. And as my colleagues have said, particularly about assessment and what's required of them. When. The third is that it's connected, that students aren't having an isolated experience online, but that they feel very connected and that they are very connected to one another and to their educators. And the fourth is that it's digital, because moving from bricks to clicks or from atoms to bytes gives us that flexibility, that online nature, and that exciting gamified experience where students can pursue challenges and really take advantage of the digital capacity. To finish up case studies and sample resources, we've built a new website called digitalfirst.usq.edu.au, and the link is here. And again, you can tweet me at Kanash and Oz if you lose the links for later. But digitalfirst.usq.edu.au. And what you'll be able to do there is go in and see actual, tangible examples from our courses about what our learning experience looks like. And we use this to give our other educators or conveners opportunities, because often people don't know what they don't know. So we give them a tour through here and say, order by menu. See what you'd like to build. So examples are lab videos, icon sets, teaching approaches, discussion forums, etc. And then to the wow elements of 3D photography, virtual labs, etc. So I invite you to pursue later and to explore our approach to the digital first experience.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Kinas. We are coming to the next sessions. But before that, I would like to point out some important points from these three presenters, ladies and gentlemen. All of them are talking about designing the online courses as intentional, and it has a specific learning outcomes to achieve. So we cannot simply force the modality of interactions based on the available resources only, but we really have to think it. We have to strategize that. Other important points that I would like to address is that the importance of the support for our students, including our professors, and we have to extend that support, and we have to continually support them rather than we have to do it directly. Okay, so some others detailed information will come in the panel discussion, I think. So stay with us, all Australian colleagues. We are moving to the next agenda that we will hear another three presenters from Indonesia. This time we will hear from Gajah Mada University, from Universitas Tanjung Pura in West Borneo, Kalimantan, and also Makassar State University in South Celebes, Sulawesi. They will be addressing the following topics: implementation online learning in Indonesia and its progress, and what's up for teaching with low connectivity during COVID-19 pandemic, and redesigning learning through LMS. Yes. Please welcome the first presenter, Professor Virastuti Vidyapanti. She is from Gadjah Mada University. She is the head of Center for Academic Innovation and Studies. She is also a professor in Department of Geographic Information Science in the same university. She got her PhD from University of South Wales, Australia. Please, Professor Vidyanti, you may begin the presentation.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bapak Arijanto, for the time. I just want to check whether you can hear my voice clearly, and also the presentation.
Yes, we.
All right. Thank you. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to be able to be part in this workshop, to be able to share our experience in implementing online learning in Universitas Gadjah Mada. And yeah, as we know that COVID-19 last year really forced us to be able to adapt very quickly and how we transform from conventional teaching to the online teaching. And it's not easy to do that. And UGM faced challenge and also all homework that we have been working until today. So we want to share about what we have been working on, the online learning implementation, including the preparedness and also readiness, and what the program that we have been developed to make sure the quality of learning and also the method that we want to apply in all university system, and that can be the important point in implementing online learning. So I want to provide the background of what is the base of Universitas Gadjah Mada in preparing the program to prepare and also to make all elements of university to be ready to implement the online. So like I mentioned before, the emergency remote teaching is really forced us to be able to adapt. And the first transition that we faced last year, we found that not many lecturer and student ready to be part of the implementation on online learning. And that's why after a month or 2 months, I think on May 2020, we conduct survey on how online learning implementation in Gadjah Mada University have been experienced by students and also by lecturer and also supporting staff. And I will let you know the result, and that result will be the base for us to develop the program, and also the homework that we have to think carefully and also intensively to be able to adjust in the future. So from this result, we also will set up the goals and also the standard and also all of things that already mentioned by the previous speaker from Australia. So we will start from now. The result of online learning survey for students, I mentioned for everyone able to see here, mostly they have problem with the internet quality. As at the beginning and at the middle of 2020, most of the students already returned to their home. And as you know, the Universitas Gadjah Mada, as the largest university in Indonesia, have a student come from all over Indonesia. So most of them return to Sumatra, Kalimantan, Sulawesi, and some of them in also Papua. And some students from Papua even doesn't have internet access at all. So that is the thing that we have to set up and also think about the scenario, how to face that problem to be able to be part of the online learning. And also, we also checking what kind of the device and also the platform that the student experience and more convenient to use. And here you're able to see that there are many platforms that they use, but most of them like to use Zoom, of course, and Google Meet, and also Cisco Webex, etc. Cisco Webex is the one that UGM proposed since 2 years ago to be a platform for online learning implementation in Gadjah Mada University. And also the course material understanding from student during the online learning, it said there that 40% of students find that the material delivered during online learning is reasonable, but only little, like 26.1 and also 24 is less than 30% say that the course material delivering during online learning is more understandable compared to the conventional learning. So this is the result of the survey that we work on since last year on June 2020. And this is the result of the online learning survey from the lecturer. So when we introduce the method to do online learning among the lecturer, most of the lecturers have a very positive response, but the difficulties that they have face is how to get used to the platform that they use, and also the method, how to guarantee that learning outcome, and also the material, especially that related to the practical course, will be delivered very well to the student. And from the survey result, it's mentioned on the right side, the graphs of the lecture perspective during online implementation. It states that confidence level using technology on online learning is quite good. I think it's very good. And visual display quality during online learning, according to the lecturer in Gadjah Mada University, also good. But the internet quality, because also the lecturer is not working at the university, but also at home, which has a various quality of internet. Some of them say it's okay for the quality of internet, but some of them say no. So I think that's the problem with the internet quality. And also the online effectiveness in gaining course learning outcome. Most of them say it's good, but there is some important point that maybe for the senior lecturer who is not familiar with the platform, it's hard for them to adapt and delivering and using the technology to use the latest technology. I just want to check whether you can hear my voice clearly.
Yes.
Okay, all right, cool. So, and also the last one, engagement during the online learning. This is the important thing that we have to maintain during implementation. Most of the respondents said it's good, but when we look back at the survey result from the student, they mentioned that the engagement is not as good compared to the face-to-face, of course, but this is the thing that we have to think about and prepare for the future implementation. And the left side is just presenting the method that lecturer in Universitas Gadjah Mada already used to implement online learning. They use social media, they use the learning management system, they use video conference and combining between a different type of resource and platform. And most of the lecturer also applied a blended learning, combining online learning and synchronous and asynchronous learning process during implementation of online learning. So based on the result of the survey between student and lecturer, we create a scenario to accommodate especially the problem that faced by the lecturer, also the student, in terms of internet asset and access, and also the student location, and also economic background and parent education background, because we see that the family background and economic background is, I think that's the main point, how the online implementation really are working well in the area where students are located, especially outside of Java. And also for UGM, we now in the process of developing a standard and criteria to determine the quality of the delivering the learning, online learning. And also we provide several programs and also training for the student and also the lecturer. So I just skip this one. And yeah, this is the strategy to strengthening the learning process during emergency like the COVID-19, but also it's become the foundation to develop the online learning implementation and standard in Gadjah Mada University. So during our 6 months until January, we already do a lot of program to make sure that online learning implementation run very well in for student and also student in UGM and also for student outside UGM, because as you know, there are many programs for from Dikti as well as Bangkit that involve students for outside Universitas of Gadjah Mada to assess course in UGM. We have more than I think more than 500 or 1,000 students outside Universitas Gadjah Mada who assess the course inside UGM under program Bangkit. And also last year we already done training, first training of trainee for the all faculty task force representative to make sure that all faculty have representative and also have a person in charge who understand very well about how to implement the platform for online learning and how to develop the video content, for example, how to develop the material for learning process, for example, using animation, screencasting, etc. After that, on July, we do the training online for all lecturers in Gadjah Mada University to make them really prepare to welcome semester 1, 2020-2021. And this really a hard work for everyone because the training also conducted online. So they're practicing online learning from another trainee to be able to implement that for future students in the next semester. And afterward, there is another training for supporting staff. Of course, this is very important because infrastructure and the readiness of the platform, administration requirement for maybe attendance record, QR code for the course, we need the supporting staff, kind of like administration staff. And the last one, but not the least, is the training online preparation for student itself, how they assess the learning management system, how they understand the rules, the attitude, and how to maintaining focus and time management during the online learning course. And also the evaluation, this is just the point that we share to the lecturer, and we also do the specific training of video learning content for several lecturers who want to join to develop video learning. This is just a quick look at how we provide a program for students by strengthening help desk service in various levels. So students can just ask our unit who support the online learning preparation. And also, this is the scenario that we're building. Like if we found there is some student who are not able to access our LMS, so we communicate through WhatsApp, and we set up a specific scenario to help them to be able to engage with the online learning. And yeah, this is another explanation about learning management system in UGM. We call it ELOC. I might show the ELOC display on the first page. This is the ELOC, and this is the logo of ELOC. It's e-learning open for knowledge sharing. And this is the user before 2020 is about 9,747, but in year 2020, because everyone is forced to involve in online learning, so the user increased 47,692 users or active users from 59 or almost 60,000 account that we have in ELOC. And this is just the example that we provide for students. Like every platform, we provide step-by-step that we send them, so they're able to understand the platform that we use for the implementation of online learning. And this is the big homework that UGM have to do with online learning readiness, how we improve the readiness among the lecturer, among the student, and also the supporting staff to be able to implement online course material, and also to be understanding the standard and guidelines, and how to achieve the course learning outcome under the online course, the online learning implementation. And also we provide a full support and also guidelines and manual and videos on pika.ugm.icid. Pika is the Center of Academic Innovation and Studies, the unit in Universitas Gadjah Mada, which really focus on preparing all material and all guidelines to support the online learning implementation. So I think there's a lot of things that I want to share, but because the time limitation, everyone who attends here, I suggest to maybe access this website to know, like to be able to know what is the UGM progress on preparing on online learning. Thank you so much for the opportunity in this event and time. I return the time to Bapak Rijanto. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Vidyapanti. We can now go on to the second presenter from Indonesia. We have here Dr. Urais Salam, PhD. Dr. Salam is a senior lecturer in Education Department, Universitas Tanjung Pura, located in Pontianak, West Borneo. He got his master and doctorate degree from Melbourne University and Monash University, Australia, specializing in virtual education environment for language training. He has quite extensive publications, and in his area of expertise, also Australian Awards Scholarship alumni. Please welcome Dr. Salam with his presentation.
Thank you very much, Pak Rijanto. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Is my voice clear enough?
Yes. Okay,
thank you. It is a great honor for me to be part of this webinar. I'm going to tell maybe a little bit different story. The titles of my presentation today is WhatsApp for Teaching with Low Connectivity During COVID-19. This is my study last year. Yeah, I want to zoom in particularly how the student participated with their learning with low connectivity. Let me share my presentation. Okay, can anyone see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. Here I structure my presentations starting from background, study context, course delivery, and lesson learned. Here I quote, the conversation with my colleagues when we are gathered talking about how we teach during COVID. And one lecturer said, teaching students means serving them. COVID is just a case. In fact, we face cases every day. This is very motivating for me. So for lectures with new form of teaching, they are still very enthusiastic to meet their teachers, their students. Here a little bit about the background of our university. In terms of the student body, our university is quite big. Now we have about almost 40,000 students enrolled in our university. Now, it is about 1,800 courses with more than 3,500 classes are offered every semester in our university. Now, during COVID, since April 2020, Indonesia applied a lockdown. All of a sudden, all those classes went full online. Now we were panicked because actually, Untan, we do have LMS, Learning Management System, e-learning system, but the system is designed only to accommodate 25% of online activities. So with 3,500 classes online, of course, it's really overwhelmed and it's just not possible, yeah, to accommodate all activities online. But our university until now still closed. Still applying a social distance. So we are still doing full online learning. Now, lecturers had their own ways to keep serving their students. They use various platforms and applications to deliver their courses with or without LMS, Untan LMS. We use also like something like Google Classroom, Google Meet, WhatsApps, and other applications just to reach our students. Now, the choice what application we use not only depend on the capability or the capacity of our system, but also we are thinking about the ability of our student. Here is the context of our student. Particularly, I'm reporting my student because last semester I taught 9 classes. Yeah. Now from these 9 classes, I just did my survey. More than 60% of my students had low internet connection. Few students even did not have electricity at day. So in some part of West Kalimantan, it is very true, electricity only on at night, starting from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. Now, with this condition, of course, there is no connection at all, because connection depends on the electricity. Now, in that case, they have to go to the closest city, a sub-district, or even regency to get connection. Particularly when the lecturers use Google Meet or Zoom or teleconferences, yeah, when they need higher bandwidth, yeah, to get connected. Now, there were actually a lot of stories, yeah, about how the students struggle with low connection. Yeah, one of them told me that, for example, they do have the connection at home, but the problem is that the connection is not stable. Only a certain spot in their homes has a good connection, but it is not enough to join Google Classroom or conferences. It's only enough for WhatsApp. So that's the reason I use WhatsApp for my teaching for the whole semester. But that's not only WhatsApp, of course. Yeah, as I try to combine. I use Untan LMS as the requirement from our university so then they can monitor. But because that's not accessible easily by my students, so I mainly base my communication and instruction using WhatsApp communication, because I myself, for example, when I visit my parents and my grandparents located in remote area, so I just prove, yeah, I know how they experience, because when I went there, I also experienced the difficulty in internet connection. So now I understand that about the student condition with low connection. I choose the application that require a low bandwidth in order to get connected with my students. Now, last year I used WhatsApp mainly and Google Form if I want to use to do a survey or quiz. And I use LMS, Google Meet, and YouTube channel. So I combine these facilities in order to provide, to deliver my teaching. How I deliver my course, as usual, we deliver semester lesson plans in order to explain to the student the nature of the class, the requirement, and also what I mean, assignments, midterm tests, or as final exams will look like, so then they are ready from the very beginning. Now, I check their attendance because I don't want them just enrolled, but very seldom join my my meeting. So I have to join their party. I mean, I have to check their participation or attendance by looking at or recording their participation in WhatsApp groups. Usually in every meeting, so I record the WhatsApp conversation, I convert into text, and I store that the conversation, the recording conversation in our LMS, so that the student can prove that they are part of the certain meetings. Yeah. And also as proof of the attendance, I require them to fulfill the weekly work. So then if they don't fulfill or do not do the work, so I regard them as not attending that specific or particular meeting. Now, as the previous speaker said, this guided or instruction, clear instructions is very important in while we are absent physically. So that's very true. Yeah, my students say like this: the objective of meeting must be informed, otherwise we will be easily distracted. Because our student is truly digital native. They don't have problem with technology. Even though they have a low connectivity, but they still are connected. Yeah. Overall, feedback using YouTube. I use YouTube for giving the feedback, because feedback is very important, as Prof. Barter said. I use YouTube. I record myself to in a certain assignment. Usually, I record my explanation. What's the the feedbacks overall about their work. But individual feedbacks, I give my student feedback individually by voice note. So I record my voice and I send through WhatsApp, so then they can easily receive the feedback. Now, once a while, because of the low connectivity, I use Google Meet just to see their their condition, and to motivate them. Even to during COVID, for example, they have to work hard to stay connected, to study hard, and so on like that. Yeah. And of course, the overall direction. Usually in the first meeting of semester, I use this one. Now I use a Google form to do survey or to give a survey and quizzes. Now, and all material that I already delivered, I upload into LMS, so then they can later go, if they have strong connection, they can go to LMS and they can see what happened and can download some material for their study. Now, the last one that I want to share here is that our students, as I told you, is really digital native, so fast learner for digital issues. So I don't worry about their ability with adjustment with the new technology. But the problem in my case is the low connectivity. New normal means new ways of teaching, new practices, new ways of learning, engagement by students, and so on like that. So we have to be accustomed with this one. Discussion in WhatsApp group, will be productive. In some of my classes, as far as I experience, as long as I was present in a way that I direct one by one, and I call their names, for example, someone to give this response to particular question and so on like that. And the conversations are very productive, and it seems that even more productive when face-to-face, because when they are online, they can simultaneously at the same time with others, they can competing to have their ideas delivered to the discussion forums. Now, this is in my life, this is the first time to experience the true teaching online. In our university, we do have an e-learning system, but what we mean e-learning here is always blended, and only 25% meeting delivered online, and the rest we still have to make face-to-face with our students. Now, I have one class that I never met before, because this is a newcomer student for this last semester, but I still have very good contact, very intensive engagement with students with WhatsApp conversation, without face-to-face online conference. So the sense of online required me to change the rhythm of my teaching. So it is, to me, it's more overwhelmed because I had to be more attentive to give prompt feedback and responses to students. So every single work that we give to the student, we have to be responsible to give response and to give feedback. Otherwise, they don't do the job. Yeah? But if we give the response, they will work hard to follow the instruction. And what's the next things? Multitasking and overlapping will just come on right now. I can see from the monitor here, so there's some of the participants doing their other conference while attending this webinar. My colleagues also doing examination, thesis examination, but they say they're also watching me doing presentation right now. Now, this is kind of new normal for our for lecturers or for teachers, having double or triple activities at the same time simultaneously. Now, Corona, I don't know what it is, whether it is good or bad, but at least this is the great, give us opportunity to experience different things. Before Corona, we plan to have e-learning and e-learning, but we still just taste a little bit. But now, because of Corona, we have to jump into full online learning. So I think we have to be ready to have new normals. I think that's it from me. Hopefully this is beneficial for you. And I return to Pak Rijanto. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salam, for your sharing. We move to the last presenter from Indonesia. She is Dr. Vidya Carmila. Dr. Carmila is a senior lecturer in primary school teacher education and training study programs in Makassar State University. Makassar is located in Sulawesi, in Celebes. She has been written at least 5 books and a lot of teaching materials in the area of primary school teacher training. He has been also as a facilitator and trainer in various governmental and non-governmental international workshops. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Carmila and her presentation.
Thank you very much, Bapak Rijanto, as our facilitator today. I hope the host can help me to present my presentation. Okay, thank you. It's very nice and to be honored to take a part of this webinar international with some presenter from Australia. So I'm from Universitas Negeri Makassar that Pak Rijanto already mentioned that we are in the South Sulawesi, and the number of our students is very big. We have the 10 faculty, and we can imagine how we can provide it or accommodate this with this condition with the learning online process. For us during this pandemic, we feel that creativity and the integrity as the teacher or the educators in university are being challenged. Like the previous speaker already mentioned that we have to answer the condition, we have to maintain the condition, we have to conduct the learning process through the learning management system or by online or by any kinds of the platform that we can use. So we can start with the background actually. Please, the second slide. Thank you. To do learning well, we agree that if we want to our learning process run well, we start from the how we plan and design learning material, because this is the basis of how we achieve the learning objective. Because my background in primary teacher education, so if we see the teacher in school, they always prepare their learning process by making the RPP. In our context in university, we say is the RPS, yes. So we starting from that. And like in the background mentioned and the third slide, to set the targets in line with the relentlessly accelerating development of digitalization, so we put it the era digitalization as the lecture, we cannot separate. So we use the technology in learning process, especially in this condition, in the pandemic, when we don't have a what you call the effectiveness engage with our students. Like the director mentioned before, that we have to engage with the student effective and efficient. Okay, so I start with the stages in redesigning learning materials. I think that's my fourth slides. Okay, Pak Rijanto, I will make it quick. And the stages in reading, designing learning materials is based on the planning learning semester, or that I mentioned before, the RPS, including the aims and the goals of learning, what the students' competence. And despite the effort, the teacher or the educators, university design process and practice this technology to integrate with the enhanced are not yet well understood, because some of us not really master the technology that we use. Okay, and yes, this reasoning follows similar arguments. Some follows arguments that the technology that align well in the immediate need and address family problems are more likely. So that's why sometimes we adopt some technology and we develop and we make the technology suitable and compatible with our context. And the second stage is design can be shared in forms that encourage reuse and adaptation and include the pedagogical and advice. I think the first speaker, the second speaker, Dr. Karen, already mentioned about this. And the third is the technological tools can be created to support and representation, adaptation, and sharing and implementation. Okay. So this my class before. In beginning, I used the Google Classroom because I choose which platform is very easy for me. So because I teach keterampilan dasar mengajar, or in English we can mention is a teaching skill practice. In beginning, I used this platform for my class, but of course, because the limitation of this platform, so I have to combine with many kinds of platform or application. I asked my student to make the video, to tape or to video their activity, including how they practice the teaching skills. That's why they use the Kind Master, they use the YouTube channel, and after that, they can share this video and I can give or I can assess their activity. Using the platform is also time-consuming solution, actually. I think all of you can agree with me. Because as a lecturer, I can see repeatedly the assignment that have been completed by my student, especially practical assignment. Okay, please host, would you like to come for the previous? Okay, thank you. Okay, so this our new LMS. Actually, this is not new, but this is the development from our previous LMS. We call SAM OK. That's the abbreviation from System and Application Management Open Knowledge SAM that we call SAM OK. Like Professor Wiwit already told us about the ELOC in UGM. So I think this is the similar. This LMS provided and try to accommodation the needs and what the aims of our learning process with our students. This LMS, SAM OK, we conducted actually the hybrid lecture from a long time. During the COVID pandemic, the need of online learning become getting bigger, of course. The lecture must continue under any condition, and the Makassar State University, Universitas Negeri Makassar, is developing an online learning system. We have a good team in this SAM OK. They provided us, training us, the lecturer, the staff, the students, how to use this LMS program. And at the end of this year, 2020, we train our new lecturers in Pekerti and AA approach, and we use this SAM OK for the young lecturers, and we hope the young lecturers or the junior lecturers can have the good collaboration with the senior lecturers. So in this application or the platform, the SAM OK, okay, you can see this the view of our system. This is my class. Okay, so this is provided with many features like video, the discussion, the forum, and the resources. And the good things is that we can use the resources together, because we build this class or the course together as a team in one subject, and that we can use together the resources with our college, okay, with our team. And the last slide, I think how the team introduced this system to our Civitas Academic in our university, because we have to change the platform use and we need a process. So at the first introduction to the new system by initiation, the transition process from the previous learning system was carried by introduction. This new system to academic community, including the student, the lecturers, the staff, and we use the initiation process. And to ensure the implementation of the online lecture process, we have to maintain the content of material by standardization. And the last, about the quality assurance, in our university, penjaminan mutu they develop the kind of instrument how to they ensure the implementation of the online lecture process, so they can ensure the quality of the process, the quality of the design material is run well or in the standardization, with the standardization. Okay, I think that is all from our university. Thank you very much for all. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh. It's very right on time. Ladies and gentlemen, have to apologize that we are already behind schedule, about 20 minutes to 30 minutes. I hope our Australian fellow will still stay. We are coming to the panel and Q&A sessions where I have to pick up some questions here. I have a list of questions, and I cannot mention the participants' names one by one, and I also have to rephrase some questions, and I will try to direct the questions to a specific presenter. In these sessions, we also have another Australian fellow, Professor Tayyab Shah. He is with us already. He is the Deputy Vice Chancellor of and also Global Partnerships, University of Western Australia. Welcome, Professor Tayyab Shah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have some questions as maybe our Australian fellow recognized that these three presenters from Indonesia visualizing and presenting our issue from the last at least 8 months. It is understandable that we are in the very early stage of transitioning from face-to-face to online learning. That's why a lot of issue has been raised by the questions here about the infrastructure and the selection of online learning platforms. I think I would like to address these questions to Professor Kinas and Professor Paris. A lot of audience would like to know what will be the considerations of selecting online platforms. And also this is related with financial issue that we have to deal with in Indonesian setting.
Thank you. Dominic, did you want to go first, or would you like me to go first with the mic?
No, you go first, Shelley.
Okay, great. Thank you. So at USQ, we use Moodle, which is a part of has become part of the suite of the Blackboard platform. And Moodle, we find that this works well because as the previous speaker mentioned, with many different disciplines and different educators, there's a wide choice of different technologies and approaches that people want to use, but we want to maintain some degree of consistency so that students don't have to spend a lot of cognitive mind space in terms of navigating the platform. They know what things are called and where they're located in a similar way, and they know how to engage and don't have to put a lot of cognitive thought into that so that they can focus on their learning and the curriculum and their assessment instead. So Moodle works really well for us. It's cost efficient. And there are many different tools that you can use. And in fact, what we find at our university is that there's more tools there that aren't being used. So it's getting people to use the maximum capacity of what we have rather than multiply many flowers blooming different approaches. So we find that that's economically efficient as well as a better quality experience for the students.
And we also use Moodle, so there's not a lot that I can actually add to what Shelley's just explained and described very articulately. So yes, we're on the same platform, Moodle platform. And like USQ, we find that not all of the affordances of that platform is being used. However, we do also recognise that there are elements to the platform that we are a little risk averse about, and so we probably don't enable as much capability as we possibly could. And sometimes our staff who are more in the know, who are more well versed in online learning, do point out to us that we need to make some of those tools more accessible.
Let me continue the questions also. There is a questions about a blended learning strategy in the area of practical courses. How could you link that to the Fallible platform? Is there any specific strategy that you have applied for that, Professor Paris?
We actually find that that blended sync delivery is a little bit problematic, and we've tried as much as possible to not engage. Do you mean where both online and face-to-face students are coming together at the same time? Yeah, we're trying where possible not to use a blended sync, because we find that there is inequity, that students who are accessing the learning via an online environment are actually disadvantaged to those students in the classroom. And, you know, as I mentioned, Macquarie is an on-campus focused university, so we're trying to bring our students back on campus. With respect to the very practical focused disciplines, again, we're trying to manage in a face-to-face, because we know that there is learning that students need to participate in that is very hands-on, that they just aren't getting in an online environment. But what we have done is, in some instances, we are using video and a video practice type feedback loop. So students do actually record themselves doing the practical elements and send them into their teachers for feedback. That's been one way that we've been trying to tackle. And recently we've actually delivered some lymphedema training to some of our health professionals using that online sort of approach.
Thank you, Dom. Is it all right with the chair if I add in a couple more examples that go alongside with what Dom just shared?
Sure, Professor.
Excellent. So similarly to what Dom described, when we think of blend, it's not so much taking a whole cohort of students and blending, you know, these are online learners, these are on-campus learners, and we'll mush them together. But it's more taking each student and each kind of a category of student or cluster of students and say, what are their needs and how do we blend the approaches around the student? So for example, given COVID, and many of our colleagues were very eloquent about the problems about COVID and that presented. So 4 specific examples. One are in terms of labs. So in science disciplines where you have wet labs and that kind of thing, students need to do that hands-on experimentation, which they can't do online. So the solutions we've put into place are virtual labs so that we can digitize some of the experimentation, and they're actually doing it online through pretty high-tech things like AR and VR and simulations and that kind of thing. But in other cases, we're doing it really practically in that they order kits, either from the bookstore or from the library. So they borrow them or buy them. So one example is one of our food science professors. So what she did was put together kits and then beakers and that type of thing so that students had a unified experience with the right equipment, and then put tutorials together so that they could do their experimentation. And the tutorials also had safety videos, so they could do their experiments in their own kitchens. And it worked really nicely. And then they could upload videos through, just using their mobile devices, their phones, showing that they demonstrated those skills. Another example is work integrated learning. So work integrated learning means that you take the students from their full-time environment, which is the university, and send them out into industry for experience. It's working really nicely right now in that the normal environment for many, many places is actually moved online. Many, many companies are now working primarily online themselves. So the students can still do their internships and their placements online with their colleagues and get that feedback from their industry-based colleagues. One final example is learning integrated work. So it's the flip of work integrated learning. So for our students, we have a lot of students who for university isn't their primary environment. They're part-time students, they're working full-time, they're mature aged, and they're doing university part-time. So what we're doing is sometimes bringing the experience of the university to the work site, so that cohorts of students who are out in working, they're employees, they're in their careers, can access the university part-time. So it's really twisting your mind and being creative in the ways that we can be more flexible about meeting today's student needs, including in the COVID context.
All right, thank you. So I would say that what you are suggesting, both of you, that we have to equip the learning management also with a media server that can contain a lot of video back and forth from student to the lecturer and the other way around. And also everything must be prepared in the beginning and contextualizing with the existing learning environment that students are having at that moment. And also we have to look for the opportunity that contextualizing, meaning also opening more opportunity for students to get interaction with other learners, let's say from the internships cases. Okay, thank you very much for your response. There is also a question for Professor Barter about support for our lecturer. As Professor Barter may be aware that these three presenters also said about the readiness of the lecturer. We have a lot of lecturer who is not digital native, but on the other side, on the other way around, that students is really motivated and they find it very easily to navigate and use many technology solutions. Please, if you could share some strategy or tips for us, it would be nice. Thank you.
There was a note to the chat that unfortunately Nick Barter, he said he had to leave.
Sorry, I did not notice that. Or probably Professor Kinas and Paris would like to address these questions.
I'll start since I have my mic open. You'll notice that my accent is actually Canadian rather than Australian, even though I'm a dual citizen. And so I spent longer in Canada. And the reason that this is relevant here is that I come from a place where there's still a lot of family farms. And so what happens when you have a family farm instead of a big multi-billion-dollar agriculture industry is that none of the families have a lot of money to make things happen. So when they have to build a barn, all of the community members come together for a weekend and they bring their tools and their tractors and their equipment, and there's lots of food, and people together build the barn over the weekend, and it's called a barn raising. And so we apply that concept here at the university. And so that was the key way that we mobilized exams and pivoted really quickly to getting exams online that weren't previously, really fast with entering COVID, to get the rest of the courses online, etc. is we had what's called barn raisings. And so we would have big Zoom forums like we're having here, but it was roll up your sleeves, bring the things that you need to work on, and we'll work on them together, so that people would give each other ideas. They would share their screen with a document that they were working on. People would give them ideas, and they would leave the session with their exam written to go online, or whatever it was, a piece of assessment designed, or whatever it was that we were working on. So it's these kinds of, again, creative ways, not only to support our students, but creative ways to really support our lecturers to do this.
Okay, thank you, Professor Kinas. Professor Vidyapanti from UGM, there is a question for you about social media. The participants would like to know the strategy of implementing the social media into the learning process.
All right. Well, thank you. I will try to provide example. Like some of lecturer, they put assignment on the social media. They put the video or the link in Instagram, for example, to be able to assess by student. And we ask student to give a review and also comment related to the topic that we want to raise to the discussion. And that's part of the blended learning that have been discussed. Like blended learning in UGM, it's mean that we have 15 minutes for learning for the student, and 15 minutes for doing a face-to-face or synchronous class, and also 15 minutes for conducting another learning and being accompanied by a tutor or assistant. So the 15 minutes of blended learning during using social media mean that we provide the assignment, we provide the video, we provide the material to the social media. You can use Facebook, you can use Instagram, you can use Telegram, WhatsApp, WhatsApp and Telegram is not social media, so another social media. So student encouraged to assess that material and ask them to provide review and also a resume, and that will become a material to have discussion during synchronous class. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Vidyapanti. How about the safety factor of social media?
Well, yes, that's the thing that we have to consider. Like usually we have a group of social media as a private group. So we have a list and also like a specific account of the social media that only be able to access by the student who enroll in our course.
Thank you. There is no more relevant questions actually from the audience. I have screened out most of the question has been answered indirectly, but I would like to offer Professor Tayyab Shah if you want to say something or you want to reflect upon what we have discussing.
Sure, thank you very much, and thank you to my colleagues who've been presenting a very fascinating forum, and I thought it's very insightful. I've certainly learned a lot as a non-specialist senior leader of a university, and it's reinforced quite a lot of what I've seen to date. I do hope that colleagues will share their slides and let everybody benefit more widely. I'm the international lead at University of Western Australia. It's here in Perth in WA, and as the international lead, I look mainly towards how our international students have engaged with online learning. And I think a couple of observations that I'd like to make here is that we need to take account of the cultural differences in learning and participation. It's something that we are acutely aware of, particularly as we have a large number of students who are stuck overseas. That we are seeking to engage with. And often I have had feedback that they have been reluctant to participate in sessions. And it's how do we equip our faculty with the skills to be able to draw out and engage with different groups of students and recognizing those cultural nuances. The second observation I would make here is that moving to an online or a hybrid environment is now providing senior leaders within universities like myself a much more data-rich environment. I have access to a more data-driven analysis of participation, engagement of different facets of online learning. And that is helping to then guide innovation. And we can see more and more clearly what is working, what is not working, that some academics need more support than others in being able to engage in online learning. And I think that certainly lends itself very well. The third point I'll make is in relation to student experience and well-being that was talked about throughout the course of this webinar. It's important that we do engage with them. And again, if I use the experience of our international students, for example, those that are stuck in China, we had to develop a blended form for them to maintain the participation rates. That we recognized that most students were either choosing to defer or were doing the minimal number of units to remain engaged. And that again speaks to learning styles. Some students are very comfortable learning in isolation from their parents' homes and will have good access to internet and devices, and others clearly do not. And they actually need the peer support, academic support, and so on. And as a result of that, we set up learning centers in places like China, which allowed students to enroll at partner universities while studying at UWA. So that would give them the campus experience, peer support and peer companionship, and some academic support as well, while studying online. And together, in terms of the well-being, we made sure that there was more engagement with the student guild and the clubs and societies, so they felt connected to the university, even though they were in isolation. And simple things like providing them with hoodies and branded mugs was another way of making sure they're engaged, because there is a concern around the mental wellness of our students, particularly those that are isolated and offshore. But I do think that long-term online learning is here to stay. It will probably mold more into a blended form, certainly at the undergraduate level. But at the postgraduate level, particularly for those who are looking for career progression and advancement, who are time poor and with families, online learning is excellent. And we at UWA are certainly now looking at providing more of our online degree programs like MBAs and Masters in Data Science to markets such as Indonesia, and certainly looking at engaging much more. So I do see online as an opportunity to foster new strands of partnership with universities in Indonesia and other countries around the world, working together in online learning to share experiences, as we've been doing in this webinar, but actually looking at ways and models in which we can perhaps co-teach. And we've talked about synchronous and asynchronous. It was great to hear the presentation about those countries or communities that have low internet connectivity, and seeing that the model still works. And one of the particular models that I've been keen to promote here at UWA is COIL, Collaborative Online International Learning, which is a way of bringing two groups or more of students from different universities to work together on a co-designed project or assignment and work together online. You leave the students to worry about the technology. As somebody mentioned, they are digital natives. They will work out how to collaborate. The academics' responsibility is to work with their counterpart to devise a suitable project or assignment that no one group of students can provide. And they work together over a sustained period of time, ideally a whole semester. And through that interaction, they learn some of the cross-cultural competencies we associate with travel. They learn to respect different ways of communication, different ways of working in teams, and different ways of engaging with one another in coming up with solutions. And that approach of COIL, it's not a new pedagogy, it's been around for nearly 20 years, is something that I would encourage the participants here to look at more, because I think it's a great way of developing collaboration and participation between Australian and Indonesian universities. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shah. Indeed, it's very interesting that you just mentioned about how to deal with the low bandwidth and connectivity by having a local support system. I think that's the end of our panel discussion for this item. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your participations and for all the presenters also. As you know that this is just the beginning of dialogue between the Australian fellow and Indonesian fellow. So we hope for future plannings and also another implementation in the projects facilitated by Indonesian Director General of Higher Education and also Australian Embassy. I return back this agenda to the MC, Hilmi.
Thank you, Mr. Rianto. Ladies and gentlemen, we have completed the panel session and it was an interesting discussion we have. Now we are on the end of webinars program. We are very pleased to invite the Education and Science Counselor, Elizabeth Campbell-Dorning, to close this webinar. Time is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of the speakers. I won't take very long because I think the really valuable conversation and especially the questions and answers facilitated by Prof. Rijanto. Thank you so much. So really thank you to everyone who has contributed in sharing your valuable know-how and the lessons that you've learned so far in this journey towards in developing online learning materials. There have been so many key points. I will not summarize them, but I think one of the really key points is this message that there are lots of different approaches and there are many resources available out there, and we can help direct you to those resources, and you're not in this alone. So I would just echo what Prof. Wijanto has said about this being the start. We will have more opportunity to talk and to explore other related topics here. So this is not the end. We can build from this webinar, and I really thank you for your time today and encourage you to keep an eye out for the future webinars in this series, but also encourage you to reflect on the information that we have heard today and how it might apply to your circumstances. So really just let me once again and finally express my sincere thanks to you all and to the ministry and to the speakers, and absolutely to the participants for facilitating such an interactive discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our program. Before that, I would like to announce all the presenters' webinar presentation will be available on the SPADA website or spada.kemdikbud.go.id. And at the end, we would like to express sincere appreciation, also wish to convey your gratitude and participation. And thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, pamit dulu ya.
Terima
Thank you so much.
Pak Urais, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
Okay, Mas Agus, we can ruangannya bisa ditutup. Terima kasih banyak.
Terima kasih.
For sharing.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Terima kasih.